Hi everyone, welcome to a different kind of video this week. Today I am chatting with Nick Fink of Fink and Fink Games. So Nick reached out to me about a month ago and set up a one-on-one with me to go over his game that he was planning on launching on Kickstarter. And so we had a couple one-on-ones to go over the game, and I gave feedback on the game and help him kind of get ready to launch the game. And by the time this video comes out, the game will be out on Kickstarter. So it's called Christmas Movie Magic. It's a super cute card game. So definitely go check it out. I'll have the link below. So before we get into the feedback that I gave and how that kind of helped shape the game, Nick, why don't you introduce yourself and let us know how you got into game design?
Sure, absolutely. I'd love to. Hi, everybody. My name is Nick Fink. Game design has been a long road for us. My wife and I actually launched our first game 11 years ago. It was a card game for couples, and we did it on Kickstarter. I've always had kind of a little bit of an entrepreneurial side of things. My parents actually had a Christmas tree farm growing up as a side job. So I was always interested in kind of getting into game design. I liked video games. My wife was a board gamer. And so once we were dating and we got married, it made sense with my background kind of on the marketing and design side of things we could do our own game and we could do it ourselves and we didn't have to kind of outsource a whole lot. So we launched that. It was a lot of fun. And we really had some pretty good success with that game. And then we had children. And you have children, you realize very quickly all of free time goes away. And so we spent the last really 10 years raising our children, working our jobs, being, busy and having fun parenting. But recently I decided I've always wanted to get back. And so we've gotten to a point now where I can get back to game design. And so now my kids are helping me, and we're launching our newest game on Kickstarter here real soon.
That's super exciting. So this is your second Kickstarter then?
Yes, this is our second one, but the first one was 11 years ago, so I don't know the counts anymore.
Were there any big differences you've noticed from changes from when you Kickstarted 11 years ago and now?
Yeah, there's a lot of changes. I think there's been a ton of kind of standardization. So when you go to Kickstarter now, you've got these super professional, polished projects that are launching like every week. And I think back then you had a lot more it was a little bit of the Wild West. And so you got a lot of kind of crazy, unexpected projects popping up all the time. And so I still like to think ours is in that little bit of a crazy, unexpected side of things. We're certainly not the professional, polished, super over the top ones. So we're having fun with it. I think it's going to be a good time. So we're excited.
Back in the day, it really used to be about, here's an idea. You want to help, give me some money so I can actually realize it. And now it's like, all right, I've done the idea. Now, can you give me your money more as like a pre-sale kind of thing?
Yeah, and the expectations around polished video, having like a super well done video, are so high right now. And that is probably the one main thing that was like fringe outside of my wheelhouse. So that was a big concern for me. It was like, how are we going to do a video? What's it going to look like? And so a bunch of great people, there's a Facebook group called Board Game Design Lab. So I posted there sort of looking for other designers that have been through this and what they did. And got some amazing feedback from, the guys who make the really good videos. Got some fantastic feedback and was able to take that and kind of think through it and add my own ideas and come up with our own video with the family too. So it worked.
Yeah. I've seen your video and it's super cute. And I think you did a really great job. And you didn't break the bank to do it. You don't have to hire a professional to make a beautiful 3D rendering of your game to explain how the game works and get the general idea across. So I think I really like how you approach that. But yeah, Board Game Design Lab is a really great resource. Anyone out there, if you're not part of that group yet, definitely join. I actually just posted a question about running crowdfunding campaigns for print and plays because I'm like, what's the point? Because it was crowdfunding was supposed to be about, I have this thing that's going to cost money. Can you help fund it to do it? And print and plays, don't really cost much unless you want to hire a professional artist to do it. But I've since learned that, Kickstarter and crowdfunding campaigns have kind of evolved into more of point of sale and marketing and sales almost exclusively, which is so interesting.
Yeah, there's a lot of a pre-order feeling too.
Yes.
So that's one of the things that's changed a lot too.
For sure. Cool. Well, we'll talk even more about sort of the lessons that you've learned building your Kickstarter page and getting ready to launch. But before we do, why don't we get into you've made a list of sort of the top 5 takeaways that you got from our one-on-one sessions. We met twice in the past month. And so maybe why don't we go through your first one?
I think, for anyone watching this, could have skipped some of these if I just watched some of your videos on rules creation in advance of when I missed that one. I've seen some of them, but I missed that one. So anyone who's seen that one, this is going to feel repetitive because it is. And the first one, I think, and this is your first one on one of your videos about rules, is my rules were too long. As someone who has taken criticism in the past, and I know how to deal with that pretty well, I gotta say, still, my first, you were telling me, like, this is too long. And I'm like, what do you know? How do you know this is too long? I'm like, I've never even played this game. This is as short as I could possibly make it. But no, you were right. I had 2 pages. I had a super lightweight game. For anyone who doesn't know, the game we're making is a game that is played while watching Christmas movies. Right. It's a card game you play while you're watching. So by that nature, it needs to be a pretty lightweight game. You can't do 2 things at once. And so I had some challenges, and I'll talk about the main challenges I had when I reached out. But did not think that the rules being too long was one of my challenges. But you quickly, called me out on that one. And you're 100% right. They were too long. So I was able to take what your feedback was and basically reduce my rules by a page. And really clean them out. And some of that dovetails with some of the other suggestions and edits that you had recommended to me. And we could talk a little bit about that. But yeah, at first I was like, I can't possibly do this. But it became really helpful as you challenged me to go through. I was like, okay, what actually is critical here and what should be left on the floor? And I think one thing that I would recommend to anyone one thing I've done is I keep a version number of my rules so that every time I make a significant update, I can then refer back to previous versions of those rules. So here are my rules for anyone curious. So here are the rules that I had. I had a whole front page here, and then I had a whole back page with a whole ton of optional house rules for the game.
Right.
And essentially what that turned into was me going back to some of the previous versions of my rules that I'd created and saying, okay, 6 months ago when I made this rule, what was I thinking? Why did I do this? And so it was helpful to have that backlog of edits that I'd made and then realize that I put this in for this reason, but then I changed this thing and now that rule no longer makes sense. So pull that out.
Just to be clear, there were only 2 pages. So it wasn't like it was crazy long, but I was like, for this weight of a game, yeah, it was just cards. I imagine it coming in a tuck box. It needs to be, like 1 page max, or like maybe even the size of a card, for the kind of game that you were making. So it wasn't like a 20 pages or something crazy like that. But
I actually made a joke about that on our Kickstarter, about it being a 64-page rule book. So that observation made it into the Kickstarter. But it's 1 page now.
Yeah, so you cut it in half. And so I think that's great because it's like, you want your players to get into your game as quickly as possible, especially for a fun, light game like yours is, where, you want kids to not lose their attention and like things like that. So I think it's definitely good. And you can seem impossible, but then you start cutting, 1 word here, 1 sentence there, and all of a sudden you're down to 1 page, which is definitely better for a game of that weight.
Also, you had pointed out was variance. So I had in there some optional house rules. I actually had 8 house rules in there on that first version. And you were, again, mercilessly and ruthlessly telling me to cut that out of there. But again, 100%. And I think it's a challenge sometimes to listen to someone critique you in that way, but totally worth it. The game is so much easier and simpler. So I took that from 8 variants down to, I think there's 3 in the current rule. And who knows, by the time we actually go to print, it may actually go a little bit lower than that.
Right. Because it's like, the best way that your game plays. So it's like the players just want you to tell them how to play it the best way possible to have the best experience. So if you have your base rules, but then you have 8 different possible ways you could change it, they'll just be like, well, I don't know.
Yeah.
You tell me the most fun way to play this game.
Yeah, and the whole reason I had reached out was because we had this one mechanic that was kind of breaking some of the fun. We were watching the movie, but you had to kind of pause it a lot. And so you'd be playing and then you'd have to pause the movie and have like a little conversation about, it was a guessing mechanic essentially of what was your card, what'd you guess? And so
Right.
your feedback to that me was like, hey, I don't like that because it's a little bit of a take that sort of approach that doesn't
Mm,
necessarily feel good, especially if you're playing with kids.
right.
So you caused me. I had a little introspection on that, and then also, it's not fun if you're playing a movie game to have to pause it so many times. Every time somebody guesses what your card might have been. I felt that. I knew that was an issue. I wasn't sure how to solve it, but in reality, I'd spent a lot of time thinking about it, and I realized you helped me see that of those variants, I actually had a very fun way to play the game in the variants. And so
Right.
maybe that variant needed to be the main way to play the game and kind of flip it around that way.
Right. Because I remember saying, well, what if other players, like there's a shared pool of cards, and then players it'd be a race to see who can grab one of those rather than stealing from each other. And you were like, yeah, I have that as a variant. And I was like, there you go. Like I thought of that sort of like on my own as like a fun way that it could be, and that you already had that, but like you said, it was buried down at the bottom of the
Mhm.
rules.
Yeah, so unlocking that level of fun. And like that night, I took it home and I played with the kids, and we were all like fighting to grab the card. And I'm like, holy cow, this is so much better for that. Every now and then you get that moment of just like glee when you're just like, I saw that. And you try to grab it
Yeah.
with the kids. And
Nice.
I was like, okay, that's the fun. That's where it's at. So,
Right. Yeah, it's all about finding the fun and getting
mhm.
to it faster.
Yep. And so it was crazy how once we kind of did that, everything just kind of fell into place. Like a lot of the issues, any of the issues I was having, like those all kind of fell away. It's like you could focus on the key mechanic that worked and just strip away, everything else that was a little bit in the way, so to speak. So you also kind of helped me understand to be a little bit more prescriptive in saying, oh, maybe you should do 7 or maybe 8 cards if you're not like, try this. But it was like,
Right.
you need to know what the best way is to play your game and
Yeah.
create the rules around that.
Yeah, I remember you had a few things that were just like, draw 7 cards or 8 if it's
Yeah.
had a few things that kind of like, left it up to the player to kind of decide. So yeah, it was just another thing of just the players want to be, told what to do in that situation. They don't want to be making a decision like that, especially if they haven't played the game before. How would they know
Hmm.
what to do?
And some of the changes like ended up as the variants. We did keep some of them because I do think some of them are fun, more fun maybe with like 2-player or just adults if you don't have kids in the mix. So I wanted to
Yeah,
retain some of that. So we did flip a few things around, but overall streamlined the rules, and it just plays so much better now.
that's really exciting.
And then the last thing is images. You pointed out it's a little weird to play a game and watch a movie at the same time. And it's a little weird to get in your head where the cards should be laid off, because you're all kind of you're sitting, but then you also want to be able to grab them. And so you thought it'd be helpful to have kind of a diagram of here's where this goes and here's where this.
Yeah, it's amazing how a lot of people just want to be shown something rather than told it. So a
Mhm.
lot of people just skim rules and just kind of look at the pictures, be like, okay, okay, and then now they have it figured out. So just
Yep.
having the visual, especially of the setup, will help things move along a lot faster.
Yeah, for sure. So I think between all of those things, we ended up with a much tighter game overall. It plays better. Oh, and one other thing, we had pauses in there. So we had like rounds in the game that we eliminated. In summary, like the 2 meetings we had were so insightful, so helpful to help me get a professional's perspective on the rules, because I'm a hobbyist essentially. I'm hopefully we can continue to keep making games. This rules in particular are not necessarily my strong suit, and that's where a lot of games can kind of fall apart. And you helped me sort of pull out the unnecessary parts and really focus it in on what worked. And I think it's
Nice.
great. I love it now.
That's awesome. That's so great to hear. And it's just so cool. Like I really love meeting with so many of you, and you just have so many different kinds of ideas. And it's just so fun to hear about all the different creative things that you're doing. And yeah, this is just something very different from a lot of the other games I've seen. And it's just, you were very like open to feedback, which is really, really crucial. And of course, you don't have to listen to anything that I say, but like, I think, if you're able to take what you think could actually help the game and then apply it and then see for yourself after you test it that this does actually make the experience better for the players, then this definitely benefits you in the end. So I think you had a really great approach to it. And I'm so glad that you reached out and that it helped improve the game. Maybe you can give just sort of the elevator pitch, the sort of blurb about how the game plays so people can understand more about it.
Yeah, wait. Need to get festive here first. There. How's that?
Perfect.
So our
There
new
we go.
game is Christmas Movie Magic. It is, as far as we know, the first card game that you play while watching Christmas movies. It's a super lightweight game. We really think it's something that could become a tradition. I started because my wife is a big Hallmark fan, and she has roped me in to Hallmark movies. So we started, I think we watched 30 some last year, and at some point I was like, I'm going to make a drinking game that we can play because these movies are so formulaic that
Yeah.
they're all about the same. And so I started working on that, and then the kids wanted to play too. And so it kind of grew from there. The drinking is now optional. It is a family-friendly game.
Right.
And yeah, it's a lot of fun. It's a lightweight game. It's just something to throw into the mix. Our Kickstarter is actually hopefully we will be shipping these for Christmas this year. So we're launching
Yes.
we're in July. We're printing in the US. We should have a pretty quick turnaround. And everything goes well, we're going to have these turned around to all our backers so that they can play this holiday.
Yeah, it's super exciting. I think that's so fun because, yeah, a lot of those movies and like the Hallmark movies have become a bit of a meme in the last couple of years, but just about how predictable the plot is. But people absolutely love them. It's super fun. So I think this is just a really great addition to a tradition that people probably already kind of do. They already watch the Hallmark movies and now they can add this to the mix. So I think it's just a really fun idea. So I think that's really clever. Let's maybe talk a bit more about, preparing for launching your Kickstarter, lessons learned or any advice for other people who might want to run a crowdfunding campaign.
Yeah, 100%. I think you have to take a few risks when you do a Kickstarter. It's either hit or miss. And so we took some big swings on the video, on the content. We added a lot of humor because I wanted it to feel authentic. I grew up with Weird Al. So anytime I see an opportunity to kind of parody the normal, I'm going to go with it. And so there's so many big projects out there. I wanted it to feel small. I wanted it to feel kind of individual and for ourselves to kind of flow through on that. So it's a little bit of a risk because that's not what people do. And so I would encourage others when they start a Kickstarter, figure out what risks you're going to take. How are you going to be different? Don't try to do just what everyone else is doing. And you might fail, who knows, but you can't just, if you just go down the path that everyone else is doing, then you're not going to stand out, especially now. So you have to,
Yeah.
You have to take some risks in some way, and we'll see how it pans out.
Yeah, because I'm sure the market is a lot more flooded now than it was 11 years ago.
Yep. And I mean, that dovetails too with, I think, one of the weakest spots for us is, even though we have done a previous Kickstarter, is building that audience. Like, when is enough enough? How do you start? How do you know when you've got enough people? I don't know. That's a tough one. I think you've got to have some sort of presence or some audience built in. Certainly, who knows these days? Like, I don't know what enough is enough, and how do you make sure, how do you get those people out there? So there's
You mean like the number of people like following your project on Kickstarter, or?
Yeah, following, but
Yeah.
also like, having some sort of presence elsewhere.
Right.
How big is your email list? How regular
Right.
you stay in touch with the people that you think are going to back? And so we're essentially first-time creators at this point, because we have no kind of ongoing relationship with the people who backed us previously. So
Right.
we'll be starting from scratch in a lot of ways, and we'll be able to continue to build it from here. But yeah, that's the tough spot, I think, is building that audience in advance, especially with so much noise out there now.
Yeah.
And being able to resonate with people, that's hard. I mean, I was in marketing in my career before this, and I didn't have the magic answer then, and I sure don't have it now either. So it's human connection and growing one by one, I think, is the only way to do it, and it just takes
Yeah.
time.
And I do think this idea of like being authentic, I think people are really gravitating towards and really appreciate even more now, it seems, just because so many things are so overly produced and highly produced. That's why I really like your video where it's just you like talking to the camera with your family and just being like fun and not, being like has to be like this perfect polished like expensive looking thing. Like you're just being yourself. And I
Yep.
think a lot of people will resonate with that.
Well, I hope so. I think so.
Yeah. Well, yeah, we'll definitely see. It's launching this Monday, which is really exciting. So, where can people find more information about your game and back it and support you?
Sure. So if you go to Kickstarter, you can just Google, just search for Christmas movie magic. Our website is Think and Think Games, Think and Think Games, and .com. And we've got everything there. And I also wanted to just shout out how easy it was to schedule a meeting with you. I think I've talked about the value up to this point, but just going to your website, booking it. It was dead simple. I think we met the same week that I was on there. Or there's several kind of people that offer consulting services, but with your background in party games, it felt like a good fit. And I was right. Like it's been really helpful. So yeah, I found it super, super awesome.
That's great. Yeah, no, I'm really, really happy. And so, yeah, if anyone out there wants to book a one-on-one session directly with me, you absolutely can. I've met with so many of you by now. I've been doing this for just over a year. And it's been just so great connecting with you and just seeing all the cool projects that you're working on and being able to provide feedback from a different perspective. You can be so in the weeds on your game that you might not see certain things. So it really is nice to get like an outside perspective on your game. So I will include a link to booking a one-on-one session with me as well down below if that's something that interests you. And yeah, I will definitely link to Nick's campaign for Christmas Movie Magic. Definitely check it out. It looks super fun, especially with kids and with your families or just with even on your own if you want to do that. Like it's just enhances the Christmas movie watching experience. So I think that's super fun. I'll include the link below. Be sure to check that out. But thanks so much, Nick, for joining me. It was great having you.
Thank you for having me. I love being here.
Bye.
Yeah. Bye.